Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football, continuing with our 2022 spring game recaps. Today we got the Minnesota Golden Gophers, one of my favorite teams in the Big Ten. Love PJ Fleck. In fact, if you don't like PJ Fleck, you just don't get college football. You don't like college football. Love everything he brings to the program. Watching him develop his guys as high school recruits into being good, solid Big Ten college football players and NFL draft picks. Three guys go in the NFL draft for Minnesota. Might have one or two more as well. Let's get into the breakdown. We're going to go just by position, breaking down what I saw from the spring game. It was indoors. Camera angle was a little bit funky, but I'm still going to give you guys my thoughts, opinions on how we're looking for the 2022 college football season for Minnesota. Before we do, just want to thank you guys for all the support you guys have given the channel. I feel like just yesterday I was thanking you guys for 500 subscribers. Now we're on the verge of 900 subscribers. So if you do like college football, you like the NFL draft, you like Big Ten football, go subscribe to the channel. We're talking football all summer and into that 2022 college football season. Let's get into it. Quarterback, Tanner Morgan. I believe it's his sixth year. He's been playing since I feel like I was 12 years old. I'm looking for him if he can get back to that 2019 form. If you remember, going into the 2022 season, Minnesota was a top 20 team, massive expectations. And then Tanner Morgan just hasn't looked that dominant since that 2019 season. And I think a lot of it has to do with who he has around him. You think back to 2019, Rashad Bateman, Tyler Johnson, Mohamed Ibrahim, and I believe it was Rodney Stanley, the running back. So really talented surrounding group. Hasn't really had the dominant surrounding group the last couple of years. Guys have been kind of banged up. Rashad Bateman was banged up a couple of years. Mo Ibrahim obviously wasn't playing last year after that Ohio State injury. So we're going to take a look more at not necessarily Tanner Morgan. We know what we have in Tanner Morgan. He only played one snap. He looked fine and didn't score any points. But you can tell he's going to be the same old Tanner Morgan. But what are the guys around him? Who's going to be able to bring the noise? Who's going to be able to bring some juice to that offense? That's a little bit more what I am concerned about for them. And not necessarily concerned, probably not the right word, but what am I most excited about for this Minnesota offense? Obviously, it's going to have to start with one of the best running backs in the country, Mo Ibrahim, a guy that was going to be probably a Heisman candidate, one of the best running backs in the country last year. At least he looked like he was poised to do that after just running up and down that Ohio State defense last year. Obviously, tore his Achilles. He's back. I love the energy he showed on the sideline. Apparently, he was healthy enough to play, but a guy like that, with the amount of carries he's had in his career, don't really need to play him. He's one of my favorite players in college football. Extremely excited for him. And they got a decent offensive line that we'll talk about in a little bit. Let's get to the wide receivers. Probably the position group that you need to see take that next step, and that starts with Chris Autman-Bell. He was kind of that third wide receiver in the 2019 year after Tyler Johnson, after Rashad Bateman. And I know injuries have played a role, but he hasn't necessarily taken that next step. This guy has all the talent in the world to be like a day 2 NFL draft pick. Let's see if he can take that step, maybe be an 1,000-yard pass catcher, because he is clearly the best wide receiver in this room. And you kind of need him to be an alpha dog. You need him to be an all-conference wide receiver. I think he can be. I think Tanner Morgan and that staff knows he can be it. We just got to see that, and I think that will kind of unlock that offense. In terms of other wide receivers that were catching my eye, I thought Michael Brown-Stephens was making some noise. He was getting some separation on a really good secondary that Minnesota has. We'll talk about a little bit later. He was making some noise, getting open, getting some catches. A Dylan Wright and Logan Wright. Dylan Wright, kind of the speedster, vertical threat. He didn't really come up with any big catches, but you can tell the bones are there. He just needs to work on that consistency and really click in with those plays. And then Logan Wright also made some noise. So I think that group is gonna come down to Chris Autman-Bell. How good can he be for Tanner Morgan? And if you can get these wide receivers kind of humming along, I think you can see Tanner Morgan kind of throw for that 3,000-yard mark and bring a little bit more balance to that offense. I feel like Minnesota just lacks so much balance. It's so run heavy, and it's really hard to put up a lot of points when you can't throw the ball effectively, you can't hit those explosive plays behind the defense. So looking for guys who are going to step up on that side of the ball and make some explosive plays. Moving to the offensive line, this is always going to be a strength of Minnesota. They recruit well. They develop guys really well there. Excuse me. So obviously you lose Daniel Falele. We liked him as a draft prospect, not as much as most, but he was a very good college football player. Moved people around, didn't really let people pass that massive frame. But they bring in some really, really good transfers. Chuck Filiaga from Michigan is a plus starter at the Big Ten level. Just wasn't going to crack the starting lineup behind guys like Zach Sander and Trevor Keegan at Michigan, who are going to be day 2 draft picks next year. Both extremely talented dudes. He's going to come in and be an immediate impact maker. He's going to be a starter, I think, at that right guard spot. And then Quinn Carroll, he's a transfer from Notre Dame. He's graduating this spring, will be in this fall. Former top 120 recruit, one of the best tackles in his class. He's also going to bring some noise, I think. And then you got your cornerstone center and John Michael Schmitz. He's also going to be extremely good. They talked a lot on air about Arante Azri, number 69. He actually caught a ball that was called for illegal touching, but you can see the athleticism. They're really excited about him. So kind of thinking about who else is going to step up and be kind of those body movers. Minnesota wants to establish the run. They have massive offensive linemen. Again, seems like they always just have some absolute giants on that offensive front. I'm not worried about this group. I think they're going to be a good group. They're an experienced group, and they'll just be rock steady. I feel like they're kind of like Wisconsin in the sense that you're always going to have a good offensive line at Minnesota, just like you would Wisconsin. On the defensive side of the ball, this is kind of where they need to replace that NFL draft talent. Boy Mafe led the team in sacks and tackles for a loss. Day 2 pick. I think he went 40th overall to the Seattle Seahawks. Very good football player. He was a 5-year guy there at Minnesota, kind of one of the team leaders. Who's going to step up and provide some tackles for a loss, provide some negative plays, some sacks, some QB pressures? I thought Thomas Rush could be one of those guys. And then they go to the portal. I also want to know Joyner. He looks the part. He looks like he has a great frame. One of those guys that you want to just maybe see put it together. But then they go get Darnell Jeffries from Clemson, and you can never go wrong with grabbing some Clemson defensive linemen. It is defensive line U over there. They produce some really, really talented guys. And Darnell Jeffries, a guy that just couldn't really crack the starting lineup on a Clemson team that has 5, 6, 7 guys who will be drafted in the first 3 rounds next year. Brian Brzee, Xavier Thomas, Miles Murphy, KJ Wright, Tyler Davis, like really, really good football players. That doesn't mean Darnell Jeffries isn't a good football player. It just means he wasn't better than some of those guys. But this guy will be a good contributor for Minnesota. Excited about that. Lorenzo Surges also coming over from Vanderbilt. Excited about what he brings to the table as well. I think the strength of this unit is going to come towards that back end. You got Marino, Sori, Marin, who I feel like also has been there for a really long time. Obviously, you got to replace the production of Jack Gibbons, the leading tackler of the team last year. Mariano was the second guy in tackles. But I'm also really excited about Braylon Oliver at that will linebacker spot. He's a little undersized, but he flies around, makes some plays. He flashed in the spring game, I thought, a little bit, kind of added him to my notes. Definitely keep an eye on them. I think that linebacker unit will be kind of good. If you look at maybe where they struggled on defense, it was those linebackers and the athleticism that they just kind of were lacking. You look to the Ohio State film. Like those guys just weren't as fast and as athletic as the guys they needed to cover on the perimeter. And you kind of saw that rear ugly head. I think Braylon Oliver is one of the more athletic linebackers I've seen on Minnesota in a while. I think he can provide a little bit of a spark, some playmaking ability, and kind of balance out Marino. Sorry, man. I'm sorry, I can't say his name. Marino, who's more of a box linebacker who likes to play within the tackles. So I kind of like that idea. And then let's get to the most exciting part of this defense, the secondary. Returning probably one of the best safety duos in the country, and Tyler Nubin, who I think could be a legit bona fide All-American, and Jordan Howden. Both really, really talented guys. And then they go to the portal to kind of solidify the cornerbacks. Ryan Stapp, Beanie Bishop from Western Kentucky also was playing a little bit, making some noise. I think that it all started. I think having 2 really, really good safeties can make up for a lot of potential question marks at other positions. These 2 safeties probably the best duo in the Big Ten, at least one of. And I think they'll be able to kind of cover a lot for what Minnesota might, some holes in Minnesota's defense. And so overall, I think I think the story of this season, and we're going to get more to it in the 2022 summer scouting, and where we review Minnesota's film from last year, kind of get into really what the team is going to look like as they get into fall camp. But I think the biggest thing is how can you unlock Tanner Morgan? How can you get him back to that 2019 film? Because this was one of the best defenses we've seen in the country, and an offense that ran the ball really well. but it's really hard to score a lot of points and have explosive offense when you can't really throw the ball very effectively. I think that was the biggest Achilles heel on Minnesota last year. To be quite frank, it was obvious they had some I think they lost to Bowling Green at home, which was kind of a wild loss. But this team was actually really, really good considering that the balance on that offense side of the ball was just not there. They played really good defense. They ran the ball well. They did not turn the ball over very much. And that's very PJ Fleck football. But how can we get back to that explosive offense that we saw in 2019? And if that's the case, I think this team can be a top 25 team, compete in the Big Ten West. It's a good group, a well coached group, obviously with PJ Fleck, and he's noted for getting the best out of his athletes every year. He's going to do the same thing this year. Just how explosive can that offense be? That'll do it for our 2022 spring game recap on the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Thank you guys for all the support. I love talking ball. If you're a Minnesota fan, we're going to be talking a lot of Big Ten football. So go in the comments and let me know your thoughts. You guys probably know more about the team. You know more about the depth of this team than I do. I want to hear your thoughts and opinions. If you want to talk more college football, you want to listen to more college football, Big Ten talk, go subscribe to the channel. We appreciate all the support as usual. You guys are absolutely goated for that. And we're going to talk to y'all next time. Peace, y'all.